You, yes, you probably have a favorite character. And if I've learned anything from TikTok, it's probably one of these two, when it really should be one of these two. But there comes a point in everyone's life when they realize, I don't have time to argue on the internet forever about who the best character is. At least if you have a job. You need answers. That's why I'm here. With Jujutsu Kaisen turning 6 years old, we thankfully have 5 or 6... I mean, if we count the Jump Fests and the Valentines, we have answers. That's what's important. And thanks to Shonen Jump's regularly scheduled popularity polls, these are Japanese exclusive answers. I mean, Viz did conduct a poll back in 2021 and never again, because I think we all know who would have won. Jogo. And I mean, we'll address that poll when it comes up. But first, we have to flash back to 2019, back when time worked properly, and I didn't have constant bags under my eyes. Chapter 65 of Jujutsu Kaisen just dropped, the start of Hidden Inventory, a series-defining arc, where we were gifted the results of the first popularity poll, with a total of 163,000 votes. Damn, that sure is a lot. I sure hope it's only going to increase from here. With a total of 84 characters receiving votes. And I know what you're thinking, there was barely 30 relevant characters at that point in the story. So how could there possibly be 84 characters? Well, that's because we need to make room for characters like Idiot A and Nanami's former boss, who, by the way, got 45 votes. Why? I don't know. Now, I know you didn't click on this video to hear me list off all the entries from like 48 up, which by the way is the female person from Aoitodo's backstory. I sure hope they're not important. So we'll just stick to the top 10 with some personal favorites. It is also important to mention that the voting was conducted about a month or so before the poll was actually released. So some major moments for characters might have just happened and they're still lowered down on the list. That would be why. So starting from the bottom at 9th and 10th, we have Sukuna and Junpei. Not the duo I was expecting to start with, but you know, they'd be BFFs. Now looking back, it is really funny to see Sukuna below Junpei with the amount of rabid fans he has today. But it is important to remember that Junpei's death did carry a lot of weight pre-Shibuya or even pre-Hidden Inventory. People kind of forgot about it due to, well, other deaths. And funny enough, as of right now, when I'm recording this, it'll probably have changed when I'm editing it. We don't have the full results for the 4th popularity poll yet. So as of right now, this is Sukuna's highest placement in all of these polls, which is hilarious because he's had like maybe 1 or 2 major appearances at this point compared to him being like a proper villain later on. Jumping up to our next two, we have the top dog gorilla himself, Aoitodo, and the cursed child, yutaokkotsu. I feel like I don't have to explain Todo. I mean, he carried the Goodwill event on his back. He introduces the Black Flash, helped build Yuji into the monster he is today. I mean, look at those black flashes. But the strange one here is definitely Yuta. Aside from one cameo, I think, in a single panel he's had at this point. So he was mainly carried for being the MC of Zero, or as it was known at the time, Tokyo Metropolitan Curse Technical School, which was released a little under 2 years at the time that this poll was conducted. And I mean, he still wouldn't make his appearance for another 2 years after this. Coming up next, we have the trio of Nobara, Nanami, and Inumaki.
Please clap.
This poll was conducted in the middle of the Yuji and Nobara fight versus the Curse Moon paintings, so it's no real surprise that she got this high, finally getting a good fight. And I mean, that Black Flash scene, so good. But speaking of Black Flashes, Nanami, best dad of the year. Cool character, cool technique, and I wish he were my dad. Now, I like Inumaki. He's a cool character, but I did not expect him to get 4th place. He had a few cool moments during the Goodwill event, but I assume he was mainly carried by his popularity from Zero. But if I had to be honest about his character, I'd say Salmon. And now we have our top 3. And since we have a few of these to get through, let's not waste any time. Number 3, Gojo. I'd say this is probably the biggest surprise for most people. I mean, if this had come out a few weeks after, during Hidden Inventory, he would have been number 1 by far. Speaking of number 1, second is Megumi. Not really surprising. We finally got to see his domain expansion, and being the deuteragonist of the series, they tend to usually get in this topish place. And of course, number 1 goes to Yuji. That's right, Yuji. We stan Yuji. We subscribe to the Yuji agenda, just like how you should subscribe down below. Like, comment, subscribe. Now, before we move on, let's have a look at some of my personal favorite entries from this first poll. Moving not too far down the list, we have Takada beating up both Geto and Akutame himself, the quitting waiter and the bakery girl beating up both Jogo and Maito, which is just confirming to me that Nanami x bakery girl is the best ship. Hakari got 101 votes, beating out Takagi, Yuji's gym teacher, and previously mentioned Idiot A, but losing to female person from Aoitodo's backstory, aka Yuki, who then both lost to Kon, Toad, and both of Megumi's doggos. And last but definitely not least, my personal favorite, Akutame's mom beating out Hanami, which is a perfect representation of Hanami's character. Now, before we jump to the next Shonen Jump poll, let's have a look at the poll that Viz hosted in March of 2021, so shortly after the Shibuya incident. Let's see the opinions of the English JJK community, and maybe we'll figure out why we never got another one. Yep, that checks out. Now, not to shit on the poll or anything, but it's not too different from the last shonen one. Like, the English and Japanese community were both reading the same series, so obviously people are going to have similar opinions to each other. And this is only shortly after Shibuya. I imagine if this was done during the Culling Games, there might be a bit of difference between the Japanese and English community. As judging from the later polls, the English community seems to like characters like Hikari and Higuruma more than, say, the Japanese fandom does. At least judging from their placements on polls. And at least this helped with the trend of Gojo winning all the polls except the actual Shonen Jump polls that matter. Okay, what? Okay. Ignoring that, let's quickly rewind to the first actual poll that was conducted as a kind of sticker wall during Jump Festa. Now, Gojo actually won that one too, with Inumaki coming in 3rd, Panda in 4th, and Maki at 10th, which are just some very interesting placements as we didn't really get to see a poll conducted around the time of, say, the Goodwill event, when characters like Panda and Maki were more prevalent. Moving along now to the second poll. We jump ahead about a year and a half into the future, past Hidden Inventory, past Shibuya, to the Culling Games. This poll dropped alongside chapter 168, the one which officially debuted Takaba in all his glory, and Megumi was there too, I guess. With a total of 97,900 votes, I'm sure we'll see some interesting opinions, right? The Culling Games. Doubles the cast in size, and while we get characters like Higuruma, we sadly get characters like our number 10, Naoya. And while I'd like to call him the perfect bastard, I think that position goes to someone else in JJK. He's sexist, he's obnoxious, and I always love to see him get his ass kicked. And I'm sure he'd be pissed finding out who placed above him, Toji Fushiguro, a character I don't have to say much about, so I won't. He's really cool. Coming in next, we have the post-Shibuya crew with Yuta and Choso. While he had finally made a reappearance, Yuta hasn't really done too much at this point, so he maintained his position near the bottom of the list. Choso, on the other hand, is kind of hard to comment about considering recent manga events, so let's just say he definitely deserves this spot. After all, he is the coolest big brother. Next, we have the returning duo of Inumaki and Nanami, holding strong since their farewell during Shibuya. That definitely didn't make me crawl up into a ball and cry like a 5-year-old. Now, unlike Nanami, Inumaki did manage to survive, but in the process fell below Nanami, due to what we like to call in the business, getting absolutely shafted. But the placements prove that neither of them will be forgotten anytime soon. Getting his own little spot is Geto. After the absolute perfection that was Hidden Inventory, it isn't surprising that he got 4th place. We got to see his descent into despair as he slowly drifted away from his friends, which was made even better in the anime. That premature death episode, the final episode of the arc, portrayed his descent perfectly. But we return to the usual 3, and it is a sad day to say that Yuji dropped to number 3. Getting passed by Gojo, and of course sitting at the top of the pile is Megumi. It is important to remember that at this point in the story, Megumi shot up in prominence, with the rescue of Sumiki being one of the top priorities in the Culling game. And let's not forget about the Maharaga's display of strength in Shibuya, which caused a lot of people around this time to start calling Megumi the main character and kind of expecting Yuji to die. Now see where that's gotten you, huh? With a larger cast than before, it's kind of hard to find funny entries, but here are a few of my favorites. Akutame once again managed to beat Jogo and the newly added Kenjaku, but lost to Mahito this time. It's a sad day. Mamaguro, a character who shows up for a single panel, I think, beat Yuki, who actually did pretty well on the Viz Poll, Dagon, and the Maharaga. Going down the list, we have the usual funny options, but the best by far is High School Gojo, which for some reason they made separate, only got 7 votes, losing to Bakery Girl again and Ken, Takaba's coworker. And of course, Akatame's mother tied with Sukuna's finger, beating the manga's editors, Gojo Sunglasses, The Prison Realm, and sadly, Maki's ponytail, which we lost for the better, to be honest. Now, let's move on to poll number 3, dropping alongside chapter 227, the one with the shrunken domain, with a total of 96,700 votes. And sadly, coming in at the bottom of the totem pole, we have Choso and Maki, both with an amazing performance during the Culling Game and Blood and Oil, but both of them ending up a few hundred votes below the dynamic duo of these lists, Inumaki and Nanami, who finally actually fell a few places. God, man, I miss Nanami. Inumaki at this point still continued to get underused. I think the last thing we'd seen him do at this point was help free Gojo with Angel's help, but I'm sure he's going to end up doing something in the future. Hint, hint. Next we have... oh, fuck's sake. Naoya. And the person who used his curse technique to steal Nanami's spot, Yuta. And after his amazing performance during the Culling Game, fighting the 4 strongest sorcerers in Sentai back-to-back, he has definitely earned his spot in Jujutsu history. Jumping to the end of the list, we have the duo of besties, Geto and Gojo, with Yuji and Megumi. A few chapters after getting his body stolen doesn't seem to have changed anyone's opinion on him. In fact, it's only made him more popular, with him receiving double the votes as last time, making up 1/3 of the total votes from this list. I can't tell whether people like this character or fucking hate him. Now, before we make our way to our very short climax, we have to head somewhere no one wants to go. France. Around the same time as the previous poll, a French manga publisher ran a poll of their own, and the results are quite interesting, with people like Sukuna actually making it into the top 3, Maki getting 7th, and Nobara getting 10th. Then 11 to 25 is also super interesting, with Panda, Meimei, Rika, Mekamaru, Shoko, and Hanami. Now the biggest elephant in the room with these type of polls is that we can't ever find the list of characters you could vote for. So we can't really tell if it's like the shonenjump polls where they add random characters like Maki's ponytail to the list. And judging from someone like Hanami getting super high, it probably wasn't a massive pool of characters. But that is enough of that. It is time for the 4th and final poll. Now, as of right now, we only have the top 3 from this poll. If that changes, I'll put it in either the description or I'll put it in the top of the comments. So if you're interested, check that out. But the top 3 is the same usual 3 as always. But this time, despite Akatame's searing hatred for Gojo, he finally managed to make it to the #1 spot, with Yuji and Megumi just sitting below him in 2nd and 3rd respectively. And with that, we finished all the important polls. I mean, we do have some fan ones. We have the Valentine polls, which I'll throw up now. No real surprises there. And now it is outro time. So first of all, let me thank you all for the positive support on the last video. It meant a lot to me. I was hoping to get this one out sooner, but I couldn't get it to like a level of quality that I was really proud of putting out there. So hopefully you enjoyed it. I don't know. I'll figure out in a few hours when I upload it. I'll try and get the next one out sooner. Thank you for all the support, and I'll see you when I see you.